Good morning, everyone. Ragewood here, back with another Godforge video. In today's video, we're going to be joined by a fellow Godforge content creator in JKG, Brandon, to talk about the recent sort of attunement and imprint reveals, if you will. And I'd like to apologise if either of us look particularly groggy. It's 5:30 in the morning as I'm recording this, and it's just coming up to midnight for him, so we're probably both a bit weary. But without further ado, let's jump into the chat and see what Brandon thinks. So just before we get into the video with Brandon, I just want to mention a couple of things. Firstly, it has been pointed out that when I'm watching sort of YouTube videos, or reacting to them, the volume is quite low, or it's hard to hear. The reason for that is simply just in my spare time I turn it down because it's quite loud, and I've simply forgot to turn it back up. I have done the same again today, so I do apologise for that. Secondly, Brandon himself is quite quiet. We actually spent maybe a good hour trying to fiddle out mic settings, getting his to work and actually pick up, because we were struggling to hear each other in the Discord. In the end, we managed to get it to work. Better say he is a lot quieter than I am, so apologies for that too. Hopefully you can still hear him. I know I can, but I am listening to it through headphones. If you have any ideas on how we can sort that in the future, do let us know. But yep, back to the video. So we are joined by the lovely gentleman to my left, that way. If you'd like to introduce yourself, good sir, for those who do not know you.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Brandon. I go by JKG on the YouTubes. Have a background in gotcha games with Raid Shadow Legends, also some ARPG games like Diablo 4, Path of Exile, and some stuff like that. Yeah, really excited to hang out with my buddy Ragewood over here.
Fabulous. Yeah, good to have you here as well. And today we are going to be talking about the attunements and imprints that was dropped to us in the most recent podcast with Brad and Dirk. I, of course, have everything written up on my website, my initial thoughts, but I wanted to bring Brandon in to discuss that. So, what we are going to do is we are going to play snippets from the YouTube video and then just have a fairly open conversation from there. So, let's do it.
Like, we have an attunement system plan in the game, so we will have free gear swapping. And oh, you have free gear swapping. Now it feels like you don't really have a build because, oh, I can just put my best stuff on whoever I'm using for this content. But we have an attunement system that will add a feeling of permanence to that. Where it's okay, well, there was free swapping, but I can attune it. Now it's part of this character, and I want to keep it on this character, but try to save my resources here. So yeah, it's all about, like, I guess, balancing. Like,
So, what are your thoughts on the attunement then, Brandon?
The attunement for me, it kind of reminds me um, just a little bit of some different systems. I'm really familiar with the Raid Shadow Legends game. This would kind of be, in my mind, just my first impression would be similar to ascending and enchanting gear. So this would be like the gear development. We're able to the tune the builds a little bit more uniquely. Maybe we're gonna see a path, like a skill tree with the gear, um, to go along with that, so we can kind of test out different builds and stuff like that. I think it's gonna be pretty good. I The portion of locking your pieces to like one hero really kind of intrigues me. Um, I'm used to having to pay hundreds of millions of silver over the course of
Yeah.
one session
Yeah.
of playing to get uh to get a champion built. So being that we're locking a piece to them could be a good thing for me
Mhm.
in the long run. Also, I think it could be a money sink, so to speak,
Yeah,
if we are going to have to be re-gearing champions and heroes on a regular basis. So
yeah. I mean,
that's my initial thought.
my first thought initially was like probably early game. You're probably not going to be wanting to attune any gear. To be fair, you're probably going to want to sort of use your best pieces and jump them around, so to speak. It's very much. I think it's going to be like a late game sort of option. Um, and then my other thought was, is this whatever we're going to use to get the gear back off? Is it going to be a premium currency?
Yeah, I can see having to farm a lot of let's just call them gems.
Yeah,
Gems or silver. Um, I can see once we lock one to somebody, I can see that being something in a game economy where we're going to have to bite the bullet, so to speak, and just, you know, really, really buckle down and try to keep our ambitions in check
yeah,
early on,
yeah.
so to speak.
I think for the people coming from raid, I imagine it's going to be similar to like barrels and feasts, where like you'll get a couple
Yep.
of them, but it's going to be sort of few and far between. So you're really going to have to be cautious with locking said pieces on certain things.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
those I think I've been playing Raid for 5 years basically since it launched in 2019, and uh, I think I've had maybe 5 or 6 of those barrels or those feasts on
yeah,
my account in the entirety since they've been added to the game. So I can definitely see. Hopefully, it's not that scarce for Godforge, but it should also still be a little bit scarce,
yeah,
in my opinion, just to kind of make it have that weight for
yeah.
players,
Of
because you don't
course.
want us to just be able to do stuff willy nilly.
Yeah, no, understandable. Now, one thing also that you mentioned, which I hadn't
Hmm.
thought about from this, is you mentioned you think it's going to have a skill tree of sorts. Now, I actually,
Possible.
I see. I thought, and obviously we'll come on to this in the conversation later on, that the imprints would be more like a skill tree rather than the
Yep.
attunements. So my thoughts were, once you like, if we're talking about how scarce potentially this resource is going to be, the benefits coming back are going to have to be pretty big, like
Undoubtedly.
to encourage you to want to do that. So, do you think it's going to be instant benefits, or something I put in my web post is whether they are benefits that build up over time to encourage you to keep it on your champions for longer, and then once you reach that point, you don't then want to take it off.
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say, hopefully, in a perfect world, in my eyes, it would be uh, instant benefits if the scarcity is if the scarcity is lower, so we have more of them coming through our accounts. Um, More of an instant benefit, I think, would be awesome. If they are incredibly scarce and incredibly rare artifacts, or whatever currency it is, then I would say something that would scale over time. I think would be uh, pretty good. That attunement can grow with your hero as your hero grows and as your account grows. I think would be something that might be a little bit more beneficial if it's incredibly scarce and incredibly rare to obtain. So
So, you think it's potentially going to be both, then maybe?
um possibly, I would love to kind of see both. Maybe like different levels, right? Maybe we have like an epic level and a legendary level. Maybe the epic level gives us those more quick, instant benefits that are, say, um we're going to get a lot more of that epic currency, maybe 10-1 as a ratio, just
Sure.
off the top of my head. Um, and then you kind of get that legendary, resource, and those are meant for the big ones. You get the bigger reward out of that, but also you get uh it's a lot more risk
Yeah.
involved for your account because you're just not going to see as much.
Yeah, certainly. Because something I was thinking about is, let's say, I mean, we've all played these sort of games. You get your
Mhm.
substat rolls. Let's say it's flat attack percent, crit rate, crit damage, just for
Mhm.
ease. That let's say I thought maybe if you would tune a piece of gear, you get maybe an additional roll in those substats, and then
Okay.
maybe it increases over time. So let's say it's attack, you get an extra one flat attack every day for the next 90 days to encourage you to leave it on the hero. But once you remove it, you lose those benefits, which is sort of
Okay.
encourages you to keep it on there. That's something else that I thought they might do.
That's
Um,
intriguing.
I also thought maybe it could be like faction wide, like we've seen King Arthur has like a passive where when he's fighting with Avalon characters, they get, X amount of
Yeah.
increased stats. Do you get that as well? Is it just solo? What do you think it's going to be?
If we're talking gear attunement, I have my gut feeling is it's going to be individual heroes. Um, Now, when we get later on, when we get into like the imprinting, I have a feeling that might be a spot where we get a little bit more of that kind of like faction synergy. That could be a really good place to have that. I don't think having that faction synergy on gear personally, I don't think that would be the way to go. Um, Now, my luck calling stuff and being a prognosticator, um, that's probably going to be the way it would go.
It-
but uh, but yeah, I think tying that to gear, I don't think would be the right decision personally. They could do it that way, and I could be very wrong, and I'll be the first to put my hand up and say, hey, I was wrong about that. Uh, but yeah, I think individual hero based would be the way that I see this working
Sure.
out.
Yeah, don't worry. I think I am like 1 for 10 on speculative guesses. So,
Yeah.
whatever I think is also very likely to be wrong. Fine. So, that is Attunement. Personally, I'm quite excited for it. It's different.
Yeah.
It's not something that I've seen in this sort of game before. Um, it certainly leaves a lot of scope to improve and make characters creative and unique, like that what they were saying in the podcast. But as something we talked about off camera, the whole sort of being constantly broke on resources does still
Yeah.
scare me. But that is something for another time.
But also, even for characters that don't pan out to be like super valuable in all, in, like in some of the rares and whatnot, there should still be a bit of like excitement when you get some of them because of the imprint. Which, Brent, how should we talk about the imprint system? I don't want this to be like the imprint
You're
spoiling.
like worried that we're gonna have to,
Yeah,
we might be leaking features, but
if,
it's
if
fine.
it's something that cut out here, but there will be a way to use your rare characters, epics, and other, I guess, legendaries too. But even if they might not be viable as the character themselves, a part of that character may be viable on a different character who is meta. So we'll say that. So even if there's a character, you get someone like a Lady Zoc, like she's just not that good. I got another character who kind of does the same thing, but just a little bit better. Why would I ever use Lady Zoc? And you're a little bit that one part of Lady Zoc though, and you're like, that one part would be really good on this character though. So then you get that Lady Zoc, and all of a sudden you're like, cool. I don't need her specifically, but I need this from her.
So here I have pulled up a screenshot, which I have again shared on my website and in the YouTube videos, of the only real information that we have of imprinting. And your perspective on it is very interesting. It's not something that I thought about at all. So we were talking about, obviously, this is where we're going to come to summon heroes. All right. Then we have the Weapon Forge, which I think the weapon system in Godforge is going to be very similar to sort of artifacts that you find in Dragonair, for example. You think it might just be gear crafting, perhaps? And then we have imprint extraction and imprint transmutation. So you sort of just, I guess we're just sort of, you repeat what you just said to me, which say
Okay.
completely out of left
Yeah,
field.
no, absolutely. So my kind of initial thought process from this screen specifically is obviously we're gonna summon heroes right here above Simon's beautiful face. Um, hopefully they keep the face in the game. You know, gotta sell the moneymaker.
It'll be a
The
skin,
yeah,
a
exactly,
Simon
exactly.
skin. Yeah.
Uh, the weapon forge, I kind of am leaning towards kind of a similar thing to the forge um, in Raid Shadow Legends, where we can take different pieces of materials and bring them in to maybe uh, forge out some of these different more premium, if you will, weapon pieces and gear sets for potential things. I know you had mentioned possibly uh, using the weapon forge to forge materials for like the attunement and stuff, which also could be a really um, viable option as well. And then the imprint extraction and the imprint transmutation kind of reminds me of like a just again using Raid Shadow Legends as a reference, kind of their blessing system. So in the extraction, I kind of feel like they might have it set up to where we input the heroes that we're going to extract from, and then in the transmutation, the far right over there, um, we plug them in, and then we have them. Uh, we get the benefits there. That's where we're actually plugging them in. So we extract them, and then we hold on to them as like currency, and then we input them on the transmutation side, where um, I kind of feel like I just used the example off camera with Ragewood here. If we take the arm from one hero and we extract that and then go over to the transmutation, we imprint that arm on the next hero, we're possibly going to get like a base stat increase or something like that. And then in a perfect world, my super tinfoil hat theory is we also as we continually imprint some of these extracted aspects from these heroes, it changes cosmetically. So possibly, if we take, say, like Freya's wings off of her, I don't know why anybody would
Yeah.
use
Why
her
would you
as food,
sacrifice Freya? Yeah.
but just as an example, if we take Freya's wings from her, imprint them on, say, I don't know, Thor. Um, Thor now gains stat increase, maybe wings, maybe speed is the option there, but also visually maybe he gets literally Freya's wings or a different style wing or something like that, or he's the god of thunder and lightning and all that kind of stuff. Maybe he has lightning wings, something along those lines. I think that would be incredibly ambitious for them to try to pull off, but it would be one of those touches that I think would be absolutely insane to see in the game.
Yeah, so that's the thing I didn't think about at all. Almost like transmutation, almost like for those who've come from WoW, I suppose you got like the transmogrifying system where you can make your shoulder pads look like a set you've had previously, something like that. I just say that's just something that I just did not think about at all. I agree. I think it's very ambitious of them to bring it in, but my god, if character customization is something that they're after, I think that is the single-handedly could be the most complex individual system and definitely the coolest one out there, definitely. So the way that I saw it was sort of the infinite extraction you'll get, I think let's call them like souls, just to make it like an easy sort of resource management. I have 10, I think Dirk uses Lady Zuck souls. You could have, as you say, one Freya soul. Why you'd sacrifice a Freya, who knows? But I imagine super late game, if you pull 6 copies, you've got her level 5. Ascended, then maybe you would sacrifice your last extra copy. So I had a couple of thoughts, sort of, because we're looking at the last sort of menu option in the screenshot view of the transmutation. We can quite clearly see 3 heroes and them going into this item. I think it's a weapon. I thought perhaps one of 2 things, and linking it back to Lady Zuck specifically, something she has might be something you want. In most of these games, speed is king, like we all know that. So I've had a couple of sort of theories where, let's say, multiple rare heroes, it will say somewhere in their character that if you imprint me, you get +5 speed. But you must imprint me with 2 other heroes that also have this thing to get that thing. So it might be Musashi, Leonidas, and Lady Zuck all have this +5 speed, and therefore you sacrifice all of them together to get that thing. It might also be tiered behind rare, epic, and legendary heroes. So you sacrifice 3 rares, you get +5 speed. You sacrifice 3 epics, you get +10. And maybe if you're bonkers enough to use 3 Freya souls, then you would get +15 speed, something like that.
Okay.
I also
like that.
Yeah. And then I also thought, is it perhaps going to be like a skill tree? So again, I'm going to keep referring to it because you should go check it out. My website. Post that I did on this, where I basically pulled up like a Skyrim skill tree, where each time you sacrifice something, you unlock like another skill, and then the higher the rarity, so you would use maybe commons and uncommons to get like the first bracket and get like a mini sort of bonus, and then you'll sacrifice some rares to get like the mid tier, and then epics, and then legendaries to get like your final tier and unlock these super buffs, which I think are going to be linked to these weapons. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, honestly, I kind of feel actually really similarly. Um, Coming from ARPGs like Diablo and whatnot, and Path of Exile, um, hopefully it's not as complex as Path of Exile skill tree, but for a mobile game, I think something maybe around the level of like Diablo 4's complexity would be really good, because it's not super complex, but there is enough customization that you can kind of really take a different class of hero to go from a straight line attacker to somebody that's possibly going to be able to zig and zag and maybe do some debuffs,
Sure.
as opposed to maybe just doing straight damage. So something along those lines, I do think would be really awesome to see. Um, Maybe kind of piggybacking on how you said, like, first level is locked behind like rares, and then second epics and legendaries, so forth. Maybe it's not necessarily um, each level locked behind that. Maybe it's just a rare champion or a rare hero might give you 3 points, and it's like a point based system.
Sure. Okay.
And
Yeah.
epics give you 5, legendaries give you 10, or something along those lines. I think that could also be a really viable way to keep a dupe system in place, so to speak, to where we don't rack up 15 of one champion and then have nothing to use,
Sure.
have nothing to use them on. So something like that, or something that literally just popped into my head right now is maybe it's like a dupe system where if we have three of the same hero that we're imprinting, uh, maybe we get like it's almost like an ascension. They get like
Okay.
that champion, that hero becomes, they get X amount of base stat boost or something along those lines, or they get like extra extra points for the skill tree, so to speak, if you use you know three of the same champion um, to feed into the champion that we're feeding. Maybe there's like a little boost for using your dupes there. I
Yeah.
think that would be interesting, but probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean,
To be honest.
yeah. I mean, and let's, for example, we don't know how many of these weapons or whatever it is that we're going to have. If there's 20 of them and they all need individual rares and things like that, you're certainly never going to be uh, upset to get rares and epics dupes, and obviously that is the angle they're going down to make everything matter. So, but yeah, point space system, yeah, could be as well, as you say. It's definitely more. Is it linear? Is linear the word? So it makes it less kind of complicated, as you say. You know,
Yeah.
it could be more exponential, like a legendary's 500 points. So you need to sacrifice 500 rares, but then again, it still makes them useful, I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it takes 1,000 points
Mhm.
to unlock a crazy ultimate ability or
Yeah.
something.
Yes.
Where every third attack ignores 100% defense and something
Yeah,
silly.
I mean that would be awesome, but I don't think we've seen anyone that hits multiple times yet, have we?
Yeah. No, I was when I said every third attack, I was meaning more of
Oh,
like
sure.
their third turn,
Yeah,
so to speak, not necessarily a multi-hitter.
Mm.
Although maybe they get an ultimate attack. Thor gets a triple hitter out of an ultimate instead of a single hitter or
yeah,
something like that.
possibly. Yeah, calling
Let's
lightning
get
strikes
crazy.
down, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Let's get crazy. Let's make it. Let's get some silly stuff out there.
Yeah, definitely. Although to be fair, something I know that you haven't watched, which I did yesterday, um, they showed the Odin Ultimate, or at least in its
Okay.
base form. That looks really cool. That Ragnarok ability that he does. Obviously, it's not finished, it's not polished, but it will certainly
Yeah.
look good. But that looks like a just one single hitter, unfortunately. But when the ground is exploding beneath people and they're all flying everywhere, I think that is an exception that I will make, certainly, for the rule.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to go watch that like after we get done here
Yeah, yeah,
because work this week has been crazy, so I hadn't had a chance to watch it yet. But it is in
yeah,
my watch
saved.
queue as we speak. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, but
definitely. Right, well, thank you, Brandon, for joining us today. You certainly had some different insights that I didn't have, and I think it's fun to sort of do this sort of thing. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
uh, basically, just subscribe to Ragewood. Subscribe to all the other Godforge creators that are out there putting work in right now, laying the groundwork for what will become. I'm positive this is going to be one of the best gaming communities that we've seen, coming from other gaming communities that have been both great and toxic. I have a feeling just the vibes of all the content creators and the discords and everything. I have a feeling that everybody's going to be amazing. So go sub to Ragewood, go sub to all the other content creators that are putting out Godforge content.
Fabulous. And I will obviously put the link to Brandon's channel in the description somewhere down there. I'm now going to let you go to bed. It's only taken us 3 hours to get to this point, so I am going to go get some breakfast. It's 8:30 and I am hungry, and yeah, take care, look after yourselves, work hard, but as always, play harder. And I'll see you in another one soon. Goodbye.